10 Sports Central, we go over our next team prediction of this offseason, and it's going to be over the Utah Utes, a team that was 3-2 overall in the 2020 season. This team only played 5 games in 2020, so this team really did not have much of a 2020 season, but this team does have a lot of potential going into 2021, and I can definitely see this team being a big contender in the Pac-12, and why that is what we're going over here today. We're going to go ahead and get started with Utah's final prediction. We'll be looking at your season trends here today to get things started off. Once again, this team was 3-2 last season. Fortunately for the Pac-12, I mean, a lot of Pac-12 teams hardly played any games last season because the conference started playing games in November. So we didn't get to see a whole lot of the Pac-12 last season, but Utah definitely, I'd say, was one of the more talented teams in the conference last season. Lost their first 2 games. They lost to USC 17-33, lost to Washington as well 21-24. Both those teams were pretty good last season, so I'm not too worried about those losses there. But they rebounded and won their last 3. They beat Oregon State 30-24, beat Colorado on the road. That was a big win, 38-21, and also beat Washington State 45-28. So good finish to the season for Utah. This team definitely improved over the course of the season, and by the end of the season, this team actually was I'd say one of the better teams in the Pac-12 for sure. I mean, it was kind of a rough start there, but this team did improve over last season. Looking at your returning production, this is where things are really interesting for this Utah team. I mean, you got Jake Bentley, of course, who is transferring away. He put up 800 yards last season, 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 62% completion rate as well. So he did not have a bad season for Utah. He wasn't close to being the top quarterback in the conference, but he was definitely a decent quarterback. I consider him a top half quarterback in the Pac-12 last season, but I think this team is getting a big upgrade having Charlie Brewer coming in. He was the former Baylor quarterback that led Baylor to a top 15, top 10 season in 2019. Baylor was actually a contender back a couple of seasons ago, and Charlie Brewer was a big part of that, put up some outstanding stats with Baylor over the past couple of seasons. 2020 wasn't quite as good for him as it was in 2019, but he's definitely still got a ton of potential. I like him quite a bit going to next season. I mean, but looking at 2019, we just saw his potential. 65% completion rate, 3,100 yards, 21 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So he had a great season in 2019. In 2020, 61% completion rate, so he declined a little bit there. But, I mean, if he can return to how he was in 2019, I mean, he's got plenty of talent on this Utah offense. I definitely think Charlie Brewer could be a big impact player for Utah and for the Pac-12 next season. As for the running back position, TJ Pledger is transferring in from Oklahoma. You got a couple of players coming in from Oklahoma. You got TJ Pledger being one of them. Played very well for Oklahoma last season. Was one of the top running backs for the Sooners last season. Put up 500 yards on the season for the Sooners. So he will be a big land for this Utah team. This team is bringing in all sorts of players from the Big 12. But, of course, you got Britton Covey, your top receiver, coming back. Brian Thompson is transferring away, your second wide receiver. So you do have Britton Covey coming back. Last season, he put up just over 260 yards, so he had a good season for this team. Brant Queeth is also coming back. He was your tight end last season, so tight end position looks good. Receiving position looks pretty good. Theo Howard is also coming in from Oklahoma/UCLA. I mean, he was with both teams. He's been in college football since 2016, so he's got plenty of experience. He's in his 6th season of college football now. So, of course, he was in Oklahoma for a few years, played very well there. UCLA didn't get much action there, so I'm assuming that's a big reason why he's transferring away from there. But, yeah, Utah definitely, I think, will put him to good use moving forward. As for the defensive line, you lose 1 on there, 1 defensive lineman, 1 in the secondary. So defensively, you lose 2 starters, which is not too concerning. Lots of changes, though, coming in 2021. This team is full of transfers, probably the most active team in the transfer portal for sure right now, if you ask me. I mean, you've got several players coming in and out. So, yeah, it'll be an interesting season coming up here for Utah, bringing several players together from a whole bunch of different areas. But, I mean, potential Pac-12 dark horse, that's a big question for this team. I mean, if you think about it, Utah has got the talent here to be a potential, definitely a dark horse in the Pac-12 next season. Like, they've got the talent to definitely be a contender in the conference next season. Like, you've got 4 teams in the Pac-12 that I definitely think will be towards the top, and it's just a matter of who win the divisions. I mean, I'd say Utah is definitely the favorite to win the Pac-12 South right now. It's going to be mighty close between Utah and Arizona State, but I think Utah does or is the favorite right now, in my opinion. North side, though, I mean, they got Washington and Oregon up there. That is going to be a tough division up there in the Pac-12 North. I mean, I could easily see both Washington and Oregon win the division. But in the Pac-12 South, you've got at least 3 teams, though, I will say, that could win the division. I mean, you got USC, of course. They're going to be great next season. Kid on Slovis. I like them quite a bit. Arizona State as well. Don't forget about them. So all around, I mean, the Pac-12 South is also a very competitive division. I mean, there's probably not going to be an extreme standout out of the Pac-12 next season. It's just going to be very competitive to win the conference. Like, we could easily see 4 10-2 teams at the top of the conference next season, none of which will be probably in the top 10 of the rankings. But I mean, yeah, Utah especially, this team definitely could easily be one of those 10-2 teams next season, especially in the Pac-12 conference that is wide open right now. But looking at your schedule for next season, very interesting lineup here. You got Weber State at home on September 2nd. BYU on the road, of course, that was an interesting matchup last season, but BYU next year isn't going to be anywhere near as good in 2021 as they were in 2020. I mean, BYU is losing Zach Wilson, and he was a huge reason why BYU was so good last season. Like, when you got as good of a quarterback as they did in Zach Wilson and an experienced team, that was the reason why they were so good. But San Diego State got them on the road, Washington State also at home. USC on the road, that is a crucial matchup. Arizona State also a crucial matchup. So October is going to definitely determine how this team is next season. Oregon State on the road, then you got UCLA at home, Stanford, Arizona both on the road, Oregon at home, then Colorado also at home to finish out the season. So, yeah, very interesting season here because in your October, I mean, you got 2 of those games in there that are probably going to determine who wins the division next year. But looking at September, I think you start the season 4-0 pretty comfortably. I mean, Weber State, easy win. BYU, easy win, I'm going to say as well. San Diego State could be a closer one. Maybe a tricky one at the start there, but I think Utah does pull away. Washington State also a win. So 4-0 is the record through September. I think September, you should go 4-0 if everything goes correctly. If you're 3-1 through September, that's not a very good look, especially if you're wanting to win the division. I mean, the conference games are going to be the most crucial for you. But now for October, you got USC, of course. That's going to be a close one, and I think Utah definitely keeps it very close throughout the entire thing. That could easily determine who wins the division next season. But USC is going to get the win. I just really like Keaton Slovis. USC is going to be at home. That team is going to be outstanding next season. They've got a ton of NFL talent on that team, and I think USC does get the win. Arizona State, also a very close one, but I think Utah gets the win. It's at home for Utah. Arizona State next season, though. Jaden Daniels, that team could be pretty good next season. Watch out for them as well. They're definitely the dark horse team, I'd say, to really watch out for in the Pac-12. Oregon State on the road. That should be an easy win, but who knows with it being on the road. It could be a tricky one. I'm gonna make an easy game right now for Utah. As for UCLA is also a team to watch out for. It's gonna be a close one, but Utah gets the win. So 7-1 is the record heading into your November. This situation, if you're 7-1 heading into November, especially if you lose to USC, if that's your one main loss, I mean, you pretty much got to win your last 4 games, especially if USC, as I'm expecting, is going to be probably 7 to 8 wins for sure at the end of October. That basically means, like, if you want to make it to the Pac-12 championship game and you win out your last 4 games, I mean, that puts you at 11-1, and USC would have to be 10-2 in order for Utah to win the division. So that is kind of a tough task there. But last 4 games, Stanford, Arizona, both wins. And then you got 2 tough ones to finish out the season. You got Oregon coming to town, then you got Colorado. They're also going to be an interesting team next season, also coming to town. I can see Colorado being a bowl team. So Oregon, that's going to be a close one for sure. I like that team actually a decent bit going into next season. They'll be pretty good. I'm going to give Oregon the win. So you're going to be a 2-loss team heading into that last matchup. Must win there if you want to have any chance of winning your division in that last game, Colorado. I do think Utah does get the win. It's going to be very close, though. It could easily go either way, but I'm going to give it to Utah. So 10-2 is going to be a record prediction for next season. That is definitely a very comfortable record, and I think most Utah fans would be very happy if this team was 10-2 next season. Right now, I've got you guys finishing up second in that Pac-12 South Division, just behind USC. I've got USC at 10-2 right now, tied with Utah, but USC wins the tiebreaker because I've got USC winning that matchup right now. But Arizona State, once again, I got them finishing out 9-3, so that's also going to be a tough one. Be a very interesting season coming up for Utah. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this Utah team. I appreciate you guys all watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys later.